So this is the new menu for VR users. You start in a hangar with a fancy dune buggy and the smallest ship available, the Sidewinder. That buggy fits in it, so you realize small is relative. Let's stand up and take a look around. Talking about buggy, this is in a Oculus Rift DK2, so we'll lose tracking when I turn around. My last video was showing exploration while in VR and Elite Dangerous. There are other aspects to Elite Dangerous, trading, mining, crafting, arena-style combat, which you'll see shortly, bounty hunting, pirating, taking part in wars, assassinations, shifting political factions, both minor and major powers, racing, some people are doing that, and even figuring out what the hell's going on with those recently found alien artifacts in the Pleiades. Most of these involve combat, which I'm mostly bad at, but I figure folks might want to see what that looks like. First I'll show the arena combat. This is available for cheap on Steam as a standalone game if you don't want to buy the full thing. It's called Elite Arena. Pretty new to close quarter combat. Luckily nothing that happens affects the main game as far as I know. Here are a few bits from a deathmatch game. Seems to me this is trying to be like Valkyrie a bit. It seems a bit more complicated since you have full throttle control and need to worry about power management a bit. Unfortunately, the wait times are a bit long depending on the time of day to get a match. I'm enjoying flying around these metallic asteroids. These ships are a bit more maneuverable and delicate than the ones I'm used to in the quote-unquote real game. You'll notice the guns here lock on the target. These are gimbaled pulse lasers. Gimbaled lasers will track a target ship in your forward view. The targeting can be disrupted by releasing chaff. You'll see that a lot in the regular game. Those beeps you hear are me adjusting the power distribution. They can be split between shields, engines, and guns. While shooting, it's best to have them on guns, while getting shot, probably on shields and or engines to get away. Here I finally remembered a good way to get a kill is to attack someone focused on attacking their own target.
Shields offline.
Damn, I got attacked while focusing on my target. A common tactic is to quickly turn is to apply a boost while you turn and off flight assist. It really helps to keep the target in sight. Now, a quick comparison with Eve, at least at this point, unless you have some specific HOTASes, you're kind of stuck with the Xbox controller, and I tried that on Eve Valkyrie, and I guess being used to a joystick and throttle, it felt more like a game, or it didn't really feel like I was flying. So, until they have full HOTAS support in Eve, I think it'll be kind of hard to get a fair comparison.
Target destroyed.
Notice a nice blue HUD. Default coloration is amber. On the Oculus Rift DK2, the screen door effect is worse with amber and red. So to get around this, a simple hack exists to shift the colors to blue or green or white or whatever. There is one drawback, and I'll get to that later. The combat I'll be showing you here is during a power play defensive campaign. Quick intro into power play. There are 10 superpowers vying for galactic dominance, sort of like a big game of Risk with player actions deciding where to attack and deciding battle outcomes. Here I'm defending my adopted home from this creepy looking space pirate Archon Delane. Players loyal to him are attempting to expand their influence into one of our peripheral systems, which will allow them to project power to a few more systems. During the battle, each side has to perform specific actions to push for their side. At this point we're pretty much neck to neck. If successful, it'll look like this. It actually was successful. This was a capture taken after the fact. Here's the spheres of influence of the major powers, color-coded for each one. Here I'm zooming out to give you an overview, showing you where the human population is in the Milky Way. Each of those numbers in the grid represent light years in XYZ. Pretty much all in the Orion Cygnus Minor arm of the galaxy. Looks like I've got a buddy off exploring past the galactic core. The core is roughly 26,000 light years away, so it'll take him a while to get back. Here in the real game, we need to launch from whichever spaceport we previously parked at. This is actually a cheat because I didn't have a recording of me taking off in my Vulture. Besides the Asp cockpit, it's better looking in VR anyway. We under my Archon's attempt taking the system by interdicting either his loyal Kumo crew pirates or his trade ships. We yanked them out of FTL and pounced on them. At this point, it's mostly PvE.
I'm just gonna grab this federal agent real quick.
These are the voices of my other. These are the voices of the other members of our wing of 4 players. Interdiction is successful. I'll part my weapons. My power plant doesn't put out enough juice when the weapons are deployed, so I deprioritize less important systems like the fuel scoop and the cargo hatch. I'm checking to make sure that my wing beacon is up for my mates to home in on. Those popping noises are my wing mates jumping in to help. Your cargo ship's mighty defenses are no match for our 3 warships. Do note you can customize each ship from reactor to weapon systems. Good idea to tailor each one for specific tasks. For example, exploration, you won't run into many pirates or people out in uncharted space. No need for weapons or even shields. Though the devs have hinted that this might not be a good idea as there may be non-human threats out there. Some folks will kit their ships just for mining, with automated ore retrieval drones. A few saints out there are part of the fuel rats, or like a galactic AAA, bringing fuel to stranded players using fuel transfer drones. And of course for combat you'll want guns, shields, shield boosters, chaff, heat sinks, etc. The specifics also depend if you plan on focusing on endurance for PvE or hitting hard for PvP. That keelback is already dead and it explodes out of my sight. Here's when I was banking Lucifer Wolfgang, the guy who started the Marks of the Cunt, and he decided to attack a wing of anacondas. You know, the quarter-kilometer long ones. It took me a bit of time to get to him, so when I jumped in, he was ready in the thick of it. I took some damage, skulked off for my shields to recharge while Lucifer finished off the first one. When engaging the second one, I focused on the power plant, which will immobilize the ship when you take it out, so we can really put the hurt on. However, in the furball, we lost track of the third one. Yes, we lost a quarter-kilometer long giant spaceship. Well, after a fight like this, I often find I need to go repair and rearm, so here I'm going to the closest large port. This one being a Coriolis station, which dates back to the original Elite from 1984. It's an O'Neill cylinder, which is a space station that generates artificial gravity by spinning, like Babylon 5 or the Hotel in 2001. At the docking port, it's about 0.1 G, and on the outside, 1 G. Unfortunately, I'm wanted for all the wanton killings, so to avoid being scanned by the cops patrolling outside the station, which will lead to my rapid disintegration if spotted, I go in as fast as I safely can. Note I'm entering around 200 meters per second.
Landing gear deployed.
Mach 1 at sea level is 343 meters per second.
Alliance enforcer, Knuckle and I can get him.
I can't kill him, but you can. Go ahead and get that test if you
Docking
want.
successful. Engines
Go and get on me.
I'll try to find something in the meantime.
I'm on you.
Once I'm all set, I'm back on my way out. I previously mentioned chaff screwing up targeting. Here the enemy vulture is deploying chaff, which confuses my pulse lasers. You can see it shooting wildly. Quick fix is to deselect your target, resetting the gimbal back to forward position so you can use it like a fixed laser. More or less. My vulture build uses a fixed beam laser and gimbal pulse lasers. The gimbal lasers lock onto targets and can aim off axis, unlike the fixed, which has a little bit of lock on, but it's mostly straight ahead.
Target destroyed.
Ouch.
Okay, I might rearm.
Beams are hotter, but put out more damage per second. For big ships like the Anaconda, it's a good idea to target specific components, which is where the gimbal lasers really shine. Here we're targeting its power plant, which can either blow it up directly or more likely leave it dead in the water. If you get up close, you can actually see the damage model. It's really, really well done. I don't like to get up close.
Target destroyed.
Scout.
Recall from Arena Combat that trick elected to keep target in sight, boosting with flight assist off, as the boost also affects attitude control, letting you turn really quickly. There are probably better maneuvers, but this one's pretty easy to do. I do recommend using a HOTUS. It really shines against small, agile targets, but it also works well against big anacondas, as you really want to stay away from the front where all the lasers are. A good way to work towards R6 is to thrust downward, trying to turn into you while you're keeping your lasers on them. Alternatively, if they're not turning towards it, you can thrust upward and keep a larger profile of you to get more hits. This is based on them going upward relative to you. It's a great tactic to make friends with people with bigger ships than you. Notice the focus firing by the wing. As mentioned earlier, you're usually targeting the power plants on anacondas. These anacondas are, as I mentioned, about a quarter-kilometer long. At this point, it's dead in the water, so I use it as a shield against that attacking asp.
Target destroyed.
Anacondas are listed at over 1,000 metric tons stock. My wingmate Eidolon's Federal Corvette is essentially heavier than that, as the stock loadout is 1,600 tons, about half the size of the Macross Quarter. Here she demonstrates ramming smaller ships is a totally valid tactic.
Yeah.
With her Federal Corvette, almost every ship is a smaller ship. Really reminds me of that Macross attack. Or better yet, this follower. Focus firing with even two ships really helps rack up those kill merits, as each ship takes less time to take down. And the way the power play mechanic works, both commanders get the merits, effectively doubling the score. At this point we're competing against the players pledged to Archon Delane, one of the galactic superpowers. It's a mix of PvE mostly and PvP, occasionally, as we often bump into their players trying to stop us, as long as we're playing in open. Next I'll show you one of my several ill-fated attempts at PvP. I never managed to kill any players in this campaign, but I did save a few friends driving them away. Remember I mentioned one drawback of changing the HUD colors? The bad guys are now blue. Friends are red. In other words, I got a bit confused, and between the fire confusion, the excitement and confusion of PvP, which I'm not used to, I shot at my wingmate.
What the fuck? I just lost 20%.
He died soon after, then so did I. After reviewing this footage and realizing my mistake, it was a bit awkward telling Bolton. It was cool. Well, it's called Elite Dangerous for a reason.
No worries. Almost there.
And what the fuck? That can't be happening. It's just too hard.
At this point it became 3v1 against PvP specialists. Enjoy the slaughter.
Extra 30% damage. Possibly.
Flight assist on.
But I really, in one volley, I just got 20% gone. To say something about them, but
I just have to pay 10% of what the ship is worth as a deductible to get a new one. I do lose any merits I turned in, which isn't too many at this point. As I mentioned, my ship is mostly kitted for PvE. I'm laser heavy, so I don't need to dock too often to replenish ammunition like you would with cannons, missiles, or hard-hitting railguns. This is the outfitting area in the port. You can see the various weapons and accessories I have on the external hardpoints. Not only do you mount your weapons on these hardpoints, but also chaff launchers, heat sink injectors, and point defense close-in weapon systems to take out missiles and mines. You can also see the internal components, such as the reactor thrusters, the frameshift drive, which is used for faster light travel, etc. They're in various classes, or different classes, meaning sizes, and grades, meaning how powerful or efficient they tend to be. Mass and power usage are major things to consider. Mass affects your jump range, and I would think presumably your ship's performance. Not sure about that actually. Available power puts a limit on which components can be active at once. Here I prioritize certain components at the expense of others. These become an issue when you deploy and activate weapons, as they're a big power draw. You typically want to deprioritize non-combative components. Things like your fuel scoop, even your frameshift drive, though that takes a little time to spin up, so if you need to escape, if you've bit off more than you can chew, then maybe you want to leave that one on. To show a very different build, here's a PvP Viper I made ages ago. It's a Mark III. I would probably recreate it with a Mark IV at this point. It's designed for stealth and has a limited ammo supply with quad railguns. I took this out for PvP, but it didn't end up happening as the player had gone by the time I got ready. Instead, I got pulled over by a couple of NPC ships, Fer-de-Lance and a Viper. I took out the Viper, but used up most of my ammo, so I eventually ran out. Fortunately, I didn't get that on film. The stealth builds are based on the sensor mechanic reading heat and electromagnetic emissions of some sort. Shields produce quite a bit of both, so if you run no shields and compensate with armor, you can do okay as long as you don't get spotted visually. You'll be invisible or indistinct on sensors until you get pretty close, or you open your gun ports. Firing these railguns brings up a lot of heat, which makes you even more visible, so pop a heat sink, quickly cool. We want to stock a lot of those. The bright blue beams are also a bit of a giveaway. These hard-hitting railguns are really best against slow-moving big ships. Vipers are not slow-moving big ships, so I wasted most of my ammo on that, but didn't record it, and I was out of practice. As I mentioned, I ran out by the second guy. I swear there was a first guy, and I killed him. After collecting a good number of merits before I get killed again, I need to turn them in at the closest system controlled by the power I pledged to, which is a few jumps away. I really don't care about this power since my loyalties lie to our player group, the /minor faction, the Mercenaries of Pecan. Unfortunately, there's no current gameplay mechanic for non-affiliated players that pose power actions. The station is on the surface of one of the moons. I think it's great that you can actually see it from space. This is around the time that the new Oculus 1.3 runtime came out with its mighty asynchronous time warp, making what used to be a low FPS juddery mess into a smooth as silk dream. This landing was actually in 0.8. The next day, 1.3 came out. My god, it's so much smoother now. Well, it is buttery smooth on my overclocked 970 or on nearly maxed out settings. You can still get motion sick on the surface with a buggy, because it's virtual reality. Frontier added a couple anti-motion sickness settings specifically for driving on the surface. They added a keep the horizon level so your head automatically compensates, and if you start rolling over in your SRV down a canyon or something, the thing will, which makes you can make you quite sick. It blacks out the view as if you're closing your eyes. I just close my eyes when it happens, just like when it happens in real life. Here's the approach of Fuchs survey, uncut from space. Gotta buzz the tower. Eventually I'll land and turn in those merits.
Landing gear deployed. Docking successful. Engines disengaged.
So here's me taking the buggy or Scarab Surface Reconnaissance vehicle out for a spin on the dunes for the first time in Oculus Runtime 1.3. No more judder. There are at least 2 racing groups that take these things out. I want to give it a try, and the latest Galnet newsletter. There's word of something of a community event for getting together to race these things over a period of a few days. I could take that exit ramp, but since I'm on 0.1 G moon, why not do a thruster assisted jump instead? Talking about jumping, I decided to go check out that crater I saw on approach earlier. It looked bumpy. Going downhill was really convincing. I had a bit of a flashback to the first time I went down a Black Diamond slope on skis. Snowplow, snowplow, snowplow! You can see on the HUD, and better yet, peripherally, I'm going down at a 45-degree angle. I was actually leaning forward when I was doing this. Rock! So got some air here. 0.1 G is great. Thrusting up a little bit to soften my landing. I'm gonna try that on the opposite lip.
I did, but it was only a few hundred, wasn't too bad.
Woohoo!
And I'm not that far away, I'm in Maple.
Alright, I better recall my ship and quit screwing around and get back in the fight. I'll die a few more times, and Ark on the Lane eventually does capture Wadir. But it's a good fight, and lots of fun. Wonder what will happen next. Alright, thanks for watching.
What he claims to be.